Explained by the Billy Meier Contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more, compiled by David Chance, revised July 2, 2025.
Future Earth Humans Part 8. See also Gilgamesh. See also Hyperborea, Hyperborean. See also Ecostone. See also Longskull. See also Men in Black. See also Nazca Line. See also Nocodemian. See also Partar. See also Quetzalcoatl. See also Rod. See also Starchild Skull. See also Teos Caves Metal Library. See also Tunguska Event 1908. See also UFOs Flying Saucers.
Contact Report 78.
I come from the planet Satyr, which is about 1/3 smaller than your home planet. Seen from Earth, Satyr is situated in the constellation of Lyra, 157.3 million kilometers away from the sun Miel. However, the planets are not recognizable from the Earth, with its still very underdeveloped technology, because they are in another space-time level.
How tall are you, anyway? Certainly, no more than 1.5 meters.
148 centimeters, 4 feet 10 inches, and 27.2 inches, according to your measurements.
The promise made by me regarding the beam pistol is to be kept today. But now see this weapon here. This is similar to the one with which you once irradiated the young trees and the fir trees. Note, see contact reports 63 and 64. This one, however, is much older than that one. Here, the direction finder shows you the target very accurately through this magnifying scope, so that you can hit a single needle of a fir tree very accurately over a distance of several kilometers, which you can then test on a tree over there on the hill. The tubular sight scope brings the target as close to you as if it were directly in front of the weapon. In contrast to that, this is a very outdated operating apparatus, which is similar to that of your explosive firearms. To send out the radiation, you must pull back with your index finger, just as it was the case with my weapon. These two transparent containers on the top here contain two different elements which are fundamentally necessary for the creation of the type of radiation. Used together, they create a form of laser beam still unknown to you, which emits a very strong destructive swinging wave, which, however, only destroys a few artificial forms of matter, such as your film material. So you must not use the weapon when taking photographs. If the front and rear element containers are coupled by a pressure on this point, then a combustion radiation builds up, which within fractions of a second and up to a distance of 37.2 kilometers dissolves everything into nothing without leaving any traces of ash. Only the things surrounding the target char and remain behind. If the front container alone is activated by further pressure on this point, then only a tranquilizing effect occurs, which is used exclusively for self-defense purposes, while the combustion radiation usually serves only for work purposes or total elimination purposes, but in extreme cases, if necessary, can also be used, for example, to damage an enemy vehicle or flying object, so that it becomes unable to maneuver and thus ineffective. This also applies to weapons, etc. For a very long time now, about 600 years, these forms of weapons are no longer used, because our technology has developed much better ones in the meantime. The latest weapon of this type has been reduced to a third of this size, and the function of the activation of the radiation trigger mechanism has fundamentally changed. Thus, the operation of the newest weapons is individually adapted to its carrier, whereby a weapon can exclusively be used only by the owner. The activation of the trigger is now only carried out on a purely mental basis, which is why the brainwave pattern is programmed into the memory of the trigger mechanism of the weapon, i.e., that of the owner. If the weapon is to become the property of another owner for any reason, it must be newly programmed. I designate the bearers of such weapons as the owner, because this is according to your sense, and because the weapon is individually tailored to the carrier. Then, I have finished my mission for this time. On the other hand, we have to leave, because as my device transmits to me, thoughts are directed here, after which someone will arrive here in the next 2 minutes. We must therefore go and also remove the protective cover that radiates around the center.
Contact Report 79.
Through all the time that we are now in contact with each other, I have taken such an interest in all your and others' concerns that a very strong connection has developed out of it, out of which I would have acted differently in certain things than I was promised. You can see from this that I and my people too are only pure human life forms, which under certain conditions have difficulty in following certain things. It was precisely in this case that I could not determine with certainty beforehand whether I would fit in with the given rules and act according to the given advice of the High Council, because the attachment to you and your group had become too pronounced in me, which is why I found it more responsible to remove myself from the immediate area of your presence, in order to not undertake any actions for your benefit, either unthinkingly or guided by connecting feelings and other impulses, which I should not do for your own good and progress. As you know, I should not and must not interfere directly in your evolutionary work for the sake of your self-development of these things, so as not to interfere carelessly and out of a willingness to help in your concerns to be dealt with by yourselves. I removed myself from your surroundings and reach. Through this apparatus, I will fathom what ailment has befallen you.
I only poisoned myself with a little sausage, which all of us know.
Now sit here. Your poisoning is not of an easy nature, but already quite serious. As the apparatus here shows, your blood has already been poisoned, and certain cells of the brain have also been affected, which makes your suddenly pessimistic mood explainable.
I say, that is quite normal for meat poisoning.
It is not that natural, because as I see here, it is not a common poisoning, but a far more serious infection from meat parasites. Give me your arm.
What kind of thing is that?
A parasite neutralizer, as Earth humans would say. This apparatus automatically neutralizes all pathogenic or life-threatening parasites in the physical areas of a human life form as soon as this colorless surface comes into contact with the surface of the skin, as it does right now. The time of neutralization is less than 6 seconds for an entire human body, whereby the neutralizer automatically adjusts in a fraction of a second to the physical condition and constitution of the human life form concerned. In the end, the apparatus neutralizes all damage caused by the parasites, or they are neutralized if they are of any material or any other substantial or gaseous nature, which has just happened to you, so you are not poisoned.
That is great. I actually feel squeaky good again.
First of all, I would like to express my deep thanks and praise for all the commitment and efforts of the honest and diligent group members who made the creation of your center possible. Sure, it was very difficult for me and all others to understand all your actions and thoughts, and also all the appearing impulses, etc. But we realized that the beginning of the whole could not be different, and that it corresponds to the usual rules of earthly behavior. It was not easy for all of us to recognize this, because these kinds of manner of thinking and acting were foreign to us in every respect, and therefore incomprehensible, which is why we all first had to accustom ourselves to these matters in order to be able to understand you in this respect. Since we now understand this aspect of your earthly modes of life, however, we are in a position to recognize and appreciate it accordingly, which is why I express my gratitude to all of you by expressing my joy. We too have very hard days of work, and very often have to do our duties for several days without sleep, especially when, through the unreasonableness of individuals in your group, things are done which we have the duty to balance out. You should also try to make him understand that his expressions and speech become more moderate about me and my girlfriends, etc., because his speech and thoughts about physical love and connectedness are often so impure and even primitive that the feeling of shame is not spared to me. Although we only know such feelings from earlier lore, that an earth human can think and speak so impurely in this regard is an abomination to me. It is so impure and unclean that one should fundamentally not talk about it.
That damn jerk. I will have to read him the riot act again when the time comes. I will give him a girl, please do not do that.
I have lost control, sorry.
You should not apologize, and you need even less to cry.
It hurts me very much that Jacobus does not care about the true things and values.
Little child, girl, come on, do not be sad now. This lousy jerk may one day understand.
Contact Report 80.
I was just hovering above the top of the tree when I registered such strong pain impulses from you that I was frightened and depressed the ship's steering mechanism in a reflex movement, with the result that I destroyed and flattened the entire top of the tree with the lower part of the ship. What is certain so far is that the Giza intelligences have joined forces with a group of fleeing and malignant intelligences from space, see next entry, who are involved in the concerns of the Giza intelligences and are helpful to them. Their outer forms correspond to your observation that they have oversized eyes and some other special things about them.
Contact Report 81.
It is a work by the Giza intelligences in collaboration with the refugees from the Pegasus area. They were located by and brought to the attention of the group in Brazil about 6 weeks ago, after which a connection was established between them. The merger with the Giza intelligences was then only a matter of time. So they took advantage of the knowledge of the Pegasus refugees and of their equipment, a swinging wave vibrator, working on a microwave basis, thereby came to them very conveniently in order to cause damage to the actual value of the developing Sohar Center, Meditation Center at the Simya-Se Silver Star Center, and to possibly destroy it. A Pegasus refugee, whom you have observed, investigated the data of the value, after which on August 30th, around the 4th hour of the morning, the Pegasus ship was directed to the center to bring the swinging wave vibrator into action. The swinging wave bundle was placed behind the wall, which had already collapsed earlier due to a water ingress. The strong swinging waves released caused a very high vibrational wave, which within a few seconds pulled the nearly 150 centimeters thick concrete wall from its anchorage, lifted it a little, and hurled it forward, which is why it had fallen so far forward. The microwave swinging wave vibrators work with such a strong potency that in a few fractions of a second, they are deadly to any form of life in such a manner that it acts like a lightning-fast aging process, which even an ignorant person could immediately detect.
He, Pada'a, will get hold of the Pegasus refugees in the next few days and bring them back to their home planet, where they will be handed over to those responsible and put out of action, as you would say.
But tell me, Ketzel, how does the crazy vibration swinging wave work?
It is a swinging wave vibrator, not a vibration swinging wave. Unfortunately, I am not allowed to explain officially how it is constructed, but you can be assured that the Earth scientists are already developing these apparatuses in their early days. These, however, are completely different in operation from those of the Pegasus refugees. They are transformed step up, by a precisely tuned thought-swinging wave, after which they then generate the necessary energy. The Giza intelligences are not able to do this, because they are not able to generate these thought impulses. Thus, they were dependent on the Pegasus refugees.
Cut back on the concerns around us and our ships, etc., to a large extent, and dedicate yourself only to the fundamentally important facts of the evolution of the spirit or the teaching of the spirit, creation energy teaching.
It almost seems to me as if you are very depressed and therefore speak angrily. Calm down, Ta, for you know that the time will be long before the Earth humans finally learn to understand and grasp.
Excuse my surge of emotions.
Contact Report 84.
I had very difficult trouble to become mistress of the forces that suddenly invaded me, because they hit me with such an improbable force that I lost my senses, was unconscious, for several minutes. Only the fact that Plagia, whom I had attained for the experiment, and who monitored everything with technical equipment, switched on the apparatus when my senselessness occurred and hurled the invading forces back, saving me from losing this life. Even when I made another attempt to clarify the matter, this time on a purely technical basis, it was doomed to total failure. So there were two other technical attempts. The analyzers functioned until the locating beams collided with the enormous concentrative energy. Then everything went very quickly. The locating beams were actually consumed in fractions of a second, just as if they had served as food for the force penetrating them. Then suddenly, this tremendous force was in the middle of the analyzer's central apparatus and was eating its way into the actual heart, namely into the sensor area. The sensors were torn apart from the inside with bursting noises, which also destroyed the entire apparatus.
Contact Report 86.
You sadden me very much, my friend, because
You grieve me very much, for this means the non-fulfillment and destruction of all of our tasks.
Don't cry, girl, please.
you should understand that it hurts her very deeply.
But please, girl, stop crying now.
You think I might be angry?
Not exactly, no, but you seem very upset.
Certainly that is so. I am very saddened you act truly only according to the best understanding of the concerns, which is why I cannot arouse anger against you. Go in peace and be assured of my reverent friendship.
It is just that everything is so very sad.
Contact Report 87.
I lowered my ship to the clearing and overlooked the grazing deer because it was a bit hidden between the bushes. So it got into the protective shield of the ship and was killed within fractions of a second, which is very painful for me. I am really very sorry. I'm so sorry about the animal. I was just too careless.
Contact Report 88.
As you know, Asket and her people are still far ahead of our stage of evolution in many respects. Concerned for you and for all our tasks, Father Ptah asked Asket whether you might be granted mechanical or electronic protection by her or her people if, contrary to expectations, Mr. Glansman's subconscious would find your position. Asket was unable to procure what was desired, but Father handed over formulas and plans to build a disintegrator for the total elimination of strictly religious fluidal powers. Note: see Contact Report 85, P 27-39. Quetzal created the small apparatus in less than 2 days, which is now already installed and working in the small telemeter disc floating above your center. Should something be done against you in this direction, then you may be unconcerned, because all powers would be totally eliminated before they even came within your reach. I do not understand. I must have misspoken when I said the name Jacobus. That is very unfortunate. I got confused if it is what you say. I was talking about Adolf at the time, but not about Jacobus. I ask that Jacobus please be lenient, because we are also subject to mistakes, and sometimes become subject to errors and mix-ups. According to the latest analyses, a demonstration with our beam ships must unfortunately be excluded for the time being. This is due to the fact that in particular group outsiders, but also some group members, believe themselves to be privileged in matters of demonstration. Also, the erroneous opinion has arisen from the mission leaving and betraying members that we must make not only our ships, but also ourselves noticeable or visible as proof of our existence. We cannot meet these unreasonable wishes in any form, because they run counter to the meaning of all our tasks. We have no reason to show ourselves to Earth humans in any of the desired forms, nor will we do so under any circumstances. Through our actions, by demonstrating our ships to various group members and non-group members, the belief has arisen that we must continue to do this and even do it in increased measure, on the one hand as an obligation, and on the other hand as thanks and proof of existence on our part. And as explained, some believe they have a privilege, but this cannot be the case at all. These confusing wishes and demands force us not to announce any official demonstration in the future, or even to hold one. Only strictly in the area of the honest internal group are still some few exceptions to be made, here and there. By the way, neither us and our ships and our existence are of importance at all, but only the task we all have to fulfill. We cannot allow that by the mentioned wishes and demands new idolizations and idealizations arise, which would inevitably lead to a new religion, as this has already happened many times.
Contact Report 89.
I'm also very sorry, but we have to accept the individual decisions of any life forms as such, and must not coercively change them. Our cause is good and has no iota of anything negative in it. We all work only in the knowledge of what is truly good, because in loyalty to the laws and recommendations of the creation, we cannot do anything else.
Tell me rather, this is also a question from Guidu, where the first humans in the universe originated?
That is unfortunately unknown to us.
Contact Report 90.
I was only there a few moments when a sound was heard, as if an unshielded beam ship was approaching. Observing everything attentively all around and in the sky, I could not recognize anything, however, because the darkness was simply too strong. Only in front, where our court light illuminated everything, there I was able to see everything clearly out of the darkness. and as I looked over to the pole with the tape recorder switched on again after some time, and then looked down into the meadow, suddenly and as if out of nowhere a figure stood there. Exactly on the strip between light and darkness, where on the one hand the light was sharply separated from the court lamp, and on the other hand the darkness. The figure had not run there, but was actually there all of a sudden. Quietly I stood up and scurried quietly across the street and over to the pole with the tape recorder, where I fully recognized the figure and saw that I had not been mistaken at the roadside over there, where the head of the figure had appeared to me like a grimace. Now I clearly saw that the being had a human body, and if I was not mistaken, it had to be a female body. According to Earth-human terms, this was in stark contrast to the voice that this being had. Because it sounded quite deep, which means nothing, because I know very well that other beings can also have other voices in the forms, as is the case with us on Earth. Then I also saw a hand of this being, which in comparison to my fingers seemed quite oversized, namely about twice as long as mine on my hand. But then the head first, oh my goodness, that was unique. I was not terrified because I had already seen some badly mutilated human faces, but I was somehow fascinated by the sight, which is why I really looked at it first. Before I reached for my cannon, tore it out of the holster, tightened the handle and wanted to unlock it, which was, unfortunately, a mistake of mine, because when I raised the cannon, the strange being disappeared just as suddenly and without a trace as it had come. Somehow I feel as if this being, who was perhaps 160 centimeters tall, can communicate telepathically, and probably wanted to get in touch with me in this way as well, which it did not succeed in due to my blockade. Since then, I have always had the certain feeling that this being will come again, and that with a quite peaceful intention. This is also evident from its voice, which was recorded by the tape recorder on the street pole. I tried to decipher the sounds and came to the conclusion that it was always the same words that the being spoke. It sounded like Murg, Murg to me. For 2 full days I re-looked at it, and strangely enough, I always came to the same conclusion that this word Murg, if I filtered it out correctly, means nothing but peace. Since then, it always sounds to me as if this being had asked me if I was also peaceable with him or her. What I have to say is this. The head of the being had the shape of a human head, but the appearance was quite monster-like, namely a cross between a fish and a frog, with a quite big mouth and a kind of herringbone over the skull, which was as shiny as everything else of this head, which I would like to call somehow beautiful, because even if it looked monster-like in the twilight, it was very well formed and very natural. Somehow the being seemed to me to have risen from a fable, namely like an amphibian.
I know these kinds of beings. They are human life forms that used to live in water and on land. Amphibians, as you rightly say, but I do not know that such life forms that live very, very far away from this system are supposed to be here. You have not succumbed to deception, and I am somehow familiar with the very cumbersome language of the being. If I can take the tape recorder with me, I will go back to the station and call Father if necessary, because he knows some of those cumbersome languages that amphibians speak when they cannot communicate telepathically, because telepathy is their actual means of communication. Father knew immediately, because the sounds originate from a guttural language known to him of a human life form race equally known to him, which is at home in the area of a system on a planet known to you as Deneb, at a distance of about 2,000 light-years from the SOL system. The sounds Claire and you heard are very awkward, because they are very crude to these Cygners, as they are called. Normally, they communicate only telepathically, because their guttural language is very difficult for them, which they only use for communication when they have to communicate with other forms of life that are not capable of telepathy. What further astonished Father was that you also correctly analyzed the meaning and concept of the word, because Murg actually means peace, according to which it is really easy to judge that you apparently also met the correctness with it, which says that the being observed by you came in peaceful intention. First inspections in the last 70 minutes have now revealed that last Monday during the nighttime, one of our large surveillance disks in the area of southern Europe registered a foreign flying ship, but did not transmit this to the station, because it had not stored this data due to a disturbance field, which registered itself as of natural origin in our surveillance devices, and thus also had not transmitted it to our station. Checking this disk now revealed that its equipment had not been shut down for seconds by a natural Earth interference field in any wise, but that an artificial interference field from some flying ship had caused this brief damage, controlled by some intelligence. What remained unobserved during the disturbance of our surveillance equipment was an image recorder that automatically recorded the foreign flying machine in the moving image, after which we now know that this cylindrical ship, about 12 meters in diameter, is somewhere on the Earth, where, unfortunately, we do not yet know. Apparently, it is equipped with some kind of protective shield, which made our analyzers ineffective, and we could not determine the location. Well, it is actually something new, a new transmission apparatus that Quetzal constructed. He wants today's report to be transmitted with this new apparatus, which can be switched to different speeds. Our 2-hour conversation, if everything is correct, would be transmitted within only about 30 minutes, whereby you would write as fast and implement all picture forms in as short a time as only a computer device can work. This new apparatus would surpass the old one by far.
Contact Report 91.
However, we were able to ascertain with certainty that their ship, see previous entry, has not yet left the earthly space, so it is still somewhere camouflaged and shielded in a hiding place. Father tried to find out on their home star who and why they came to the Earth, but he was told that the current whereabouts of 4 ships of the Signer were unknown, so no information could be given in this regard. That it could only be one of these 4 ships was clear, because exact coordinate messages were recorded from all other units, and none were even close to the SOL system or in the SOL system. According to the Signer, the 4 ships with unknown whereabouts are older expedition ships, which unfortunately only have very limited means of remote communication on a technological basis. This means that the Signer here on Earth cannot communicate with their home planet, precisely because their means of remote communication cannot bridge the distance of 2,000 light-years. The maximum range of their devices is unfortunately less than 1,400 light-years.
But then they would be able to make a mental telepathic connection.
Unfortunately, this is not possible for them, because the Signer only master the primary telepathy, not the spirit telepathy.
Oh, so then they are planet-bound with this telepathy form. But there is one thing that does not make sense to me about the whole thing. Why don't the twits get in touch with you? Why are they trying to come to me or to come into contact with me of all things?
There is a very precise explanation for this. The Signer represent a human race whose senses are highly sensitized to swinging waves from outside their own bodies, but only in planetary or ship internal regions. Thus, they are able to receive and analyze swinging waves of all life forms. And here lies the answer to your question. The Signer have a form of government on their homeworlds, which your Earth humans designate as herd instinct, but which is nevertheless led by the strongest of the herd. So this order is a resemblance of a herd order in animals, the strongest of which exercises the position of the leading animal. Since the Signer had held this form of government since time immemorial, they changed it in the course of the last millennia only to the extent that they replaced the strongest of their kind with the most knowledgeable in spiritual matters, who thus was also the one who emits the highest swinging waves, which is synonymous with the most powerful swinging waves. Thus, it is only natural that on foreign worlds, when they visit such worlds intentionally or unintentionally, the Signers search for their kind and their form of government, also for the highest spirit knowledge-based swinging waves of this world, and, if necessary, turn to it when they need it. And through your spiritual teaching, also known as creation energy based learning, and your knowledge, you are the person on the earth who gives off this highest swinging wave from himself. This again means for the Signer that for them, you are that form of life on this world, in respect of that mentioned, above which no other form of life stands. This alone can be the reason why they try to connect with you.
Nevertheless, there are some things that do not make sense to me. For example, why these twits do not turn to you or to the other groups, because all of you have decidedly several times higher swinging waves than me.
Your thoughts are very logical, but you forget that we have to leave our swinging waves in our station, or in our ships, to be absorbed by them, in order not to influence the Earth human beings through them.
Contact Report 92.
But now I have to explain to you that in the future you should only devote yourself to your work. But that you can do this again, as always. It is necessary that I take you with me to my ship for a few minutes, to regenerate your nerves and also some other things in you. It will not take long. Come now.
We were gone about 20 minutes.
Contact Report 93.
How did it actually end with the Signer girl who you fetched last Saturday, November 26th, after my calling?
Everyone is with us at the station, including her ship, whose intergalactic propulsion was destroyed by an explosion. The Signers have a very ancient technology, which was passed to them less than 4,000 years ago, for which we do not have the necessary knowledge. For this reason, it will take a long time before we have repaired the ship, after which it will be returned to the homeworld.
But spare parts could be brought in from the home planet.
Unfortunately, this is not possible, because for this outdated technology, the necessary knowledge is missing there. 2. And furthermore, the Signers are technologically absolutely untalented, which is why they are not able to repair their technological devices, etc. themselves. They were underway for 4 long years, more than 2 years of which they drove in free fall through space, after the explosion of the propulsion unit.
By free fall, you mean they were drifting through space without a drive, right?
Certainly, they spent the time in artificial deep sleep and therefore needed no food.
I understand. Maybe they were still lying in water tanks and were woken up by a robot after a long bath.
Sure, but how do you know?
I have seen such scenes in utopian movies before. Are you twisting my arm?
That is no joke.
Man, oh man, then the fantasies of the utopian writers are not even far-fetched.
I will ask Asina.
That's how the little child introduced herself to me.
Sure, Asina is a very kind being.
I did not know that they had similar customs to us in certain relationships. Then the little girl pressed her cold fish frog beak to your cheek? It seemed to me like a kiss.
Sure, and it should also be a kiss, because that is the Signer's regular greeting form.
But tell me, why did they not use their radios or something when their ship's propulsion exploded?
Because the remote communication devices were also destroyed. I will also talk to her, and surely she will agree for a picture.
Contact Report 95.
I still saw her, Semyase, bounce up and hit her head against the wall in the fall. Then she had disappeared because apparently she had pressed the trigger button of the transmitter when falling.
Contact Report 96.
It just did not make sense to me that Quetzal came here from Era just to ask me about the incidents that happened with Simya Se. Instead, however, he took the trouble to make a 7-hour trip here to fritter away almost an hour with me and then take on another 7-hour flight to Era. By the way, what are you always fiddling about with your funny belt device? What are you fiddling with at your funny device again? What does that thing represent?
This device is a translator. I need it because I do not understand your language.
So I sent my spiritual consciousness to Era and found a rather strange building there, which somehow magically attracted me. So I penetrated into a room that seemed to me like a supermodern operating theater. There were various containers, which seemed to me like glass shrines, but equipped with all kinds of possible and impossible devices and apparatuses. All but one container were empty. In the occupied one, Simya Se lay completely undressed and obviously deep frozen, dead. Her head lay in a horseshoe-shaped opaque apparatus, which is why I was only able to see her face exactly.
It is the truth that Simya Se was dead when you found her. Her brain was so badly injured that there was no hope of being able to sustain her life. Our scientists were also unable to help her, which is why her physical existence was slowly being marked by death. She was therefore placed in a deep coma in the container you found her in only a few minutes before her life was finally extinguished. Through the intravenous supply of various substances, her body was put into a rigid and deep frozen state in a few fractions of a second, which immediately extinguished her physical life, but only for a predetermined period of time during which her spiritual form did not escape from her. For in this state of resurrection possibility, the latter clings in a stagnant form to the organic locality assigned to her, namely in the brain area. Only after the resuscitation of the body does it automatically put aside its stagnation and push itself back to activity. While Simya Se was prepared for a later resuscitation, her father Ptah tried to help her in the Dial universe with Asket, whom you should know. But this help was not able to be given by the people in the other universe either, which is why Asket sought help from a human life form race in her universe that was 4,000 years more advanced, which she actually found and received there. From there, several scientists came to Era and took Simya Se. In a lengthy process, the destroyed brain parts of Simya Se were removed, the frozen brain acids were inserted into artificially generated new plasma, protonal brain parts, and directly reconnected to the brain. After which, a rapid healing process allowed the artificial and natural plasmas to grow together and the skull could be closed again, which was then regenerated by a rapid process. This made everything the same as before, and nothing ever again indicates that these events clouded many things. Simya Se will have no memory of it, not even of the 42-hour duration, since she was dead.
Contact Report 97.
Even though the Sonair were able to save her brain through their very advanced science, the entire process of transforming the artificial protoplasma form of the brain parts takes several years, during which Simya Se must not suffer any overexertion. See previous entry. The artificial plasma form of the new brain parts has to be transformed into physical plasma, which takes several years, namely 3 to 4 years.
You said that these sonar helped Simya Se. Can you tell me more about them?
Only this much I know about them is that they are a human race of the Dal universe, whose average age of 1,360 Earth years is far superior to our life expectancy. Their body size is 175 centimeters, 5 feet 9 inches according to earthly measure, whereby their skull form is much higher and longer than ours, as I could determine. The length of the head is about 25% more than that of us and you. Their race is called Sona, in a language unknown to me, and their overall development in technical and medical terms corresponds to 4,000 years more than ours.
But tell me, why do you say that they are 4,000 years ahead of you? Isatos said that this was true for Asket's people.
That is of correctness, but we have now reached the same level with the help of the Timars. Sorry, I misspoke with 4,000 years in relation to the Sonaer.
Who is that again?
These are the people from whom Asket originates.
Do you know what these Timars call our universe?
They call it Dern Universe.
And what do you call it?
Our universe is also called Dern Universe.
That is how we talk about the Dern universe in the future. But now again, a question regarding the Sonaer, who are so highly developed. What is their technology?
It already corresponds to forms that we ourselves cannot yet understand. They are far superior to us in the control of space and time, but also in all other things.
How, for example, do they master time and space to reach Era? And how do they master the passage through the barriers of the universe?
They no longer need space-traveling flying apparatuses for this, because their technology is already anchored and deeply embedded in the transmitter area.
Simyase once tried to explain to me weeks ago why you do not just associate with us Earth humans, especially in physical form. Somehow it sounded from her words that a danger is connected with it for you?
The reason that we cannot connect with you human beings of the Earth in physical form is this. The levels of swinging waves between the human being on the Earth and us are so fundamentally different and pronounced in the forms of the negative and the positive as well as the balanced that this can lead to serious consequences if they touch each other. As a rule, these human swinging waves reach up to 90 meters, which is why it must be ensured that this distance is not broached. That is to say that terrestrial humans do not reach us under this distance mark. Our swinging waves are very highly sensitive, and we ourselves react equally highly sensitively to oscillations that penetrate our oscillation range. In contrast to the terrestrial humans, we are very high in our consciousness-based overall development, 20 to 35 million years ahead of the terrestrial humans, which is why our entire swinging wave system has refined. If the swinging waves of the much less sensitive human being on the Earth were to strike us now, precisely because earthly human, and thus also quite unbalanced and negative swinging waves, would penetrate into the area of our swinging waves, then this would amount to a very strong swinging wave structural agitation, which in reality also embodies it, which would have the consequence that the strong external influence would lead to an instantaneous uncontrollability of all reactions, thoughts and actions in us, which would at the same time trigger uncontrolled feelings of fear. This means that when the swinging waves of an Earth human meet us, who unfortunately still emits very negative swinging waves today, we would be affected in many respects in momentary speed and start to act uncontrollably, which was also the case with Simyase when she fell in the center and suffered the severe injury. As a rule, when we go among terrestrial people, which is very rarely the case, we use a device that protects us from terrestrial human swinging waves. But this was never necessary for you, because you are free of these swinging waves through all your knowledge and equalizeness, according to which it comes very close to ours. In the center now, a certain protective ring, a small protective screen was established, which keeps away such swinging waves of the terrestrial humans. This protective shield, however, is only of limited strength, so only directly for the center itself. But in the lower space, still weak radiation from outside can enter if someone goes directly to the entrance or to the outer wall. Now, when Jacobus was at the outer door, his swinging wave penetrated to Sim-Ya-Se and produced in it the fear and uncontrollability I described earlier, which drove her to an uncontrolled action. The consequences of this are known to you. These swinging wave structure agitations, which are dangerous for us, together with our strict directives, are the main reason why we are not allowed to engage in physical contact with terrestrial humans. Even with our telepathic or even only inspirational impulse-based contacts, we have to exercise extreme caution because thrown back, impulse-based swinging waves also have similar effects.
Then you are quite susceptible.
You are speaking a true word, but our sensitivity in this regard is not only based on our evolution, because our homeland is also a very important factor in this, because it itself is highly sensitized, which does not remain untainted to us human life forms.
I do not quite understand that, Quetzal, but I have been trying to fathom it for a long time. Sim-Ya-Se once made a rather strange remark to me. This led me to speculate, which is why I assume that you live on your Pleiades in a differently dimensioned form. By this I mean that you are probably up there in our universe and in our time, as Sim-Ya-Se once explained to me, but that you are dimensionally shifted, namely in a parallel system of our Pleiades.
But this does not change anything, because we are just as compact and present in this dimension of ours as we are in that of our Pleiades systems, because we are descended from this dimension and also from your dimension. Why we live in a parallel dimension on Era and in our Pleiades systems, in general, is due to the fact that the Pleiades systems are not habitable for us in this dimension. Your dimension, and could not be made habitable by our ancestors either, because the system for habitation is still much too young for us in this dimension.
Your explanation is plausible, but what is the nature of the Pleiades system in the other dimension? Is it as solid as our Earth?
It is a parallel dimension, that is what I said. Therefore, matter is also of the same strength as the Earth's matter. The dimensions are simply different in their structure, but not in time and space. Nevertheless, I would like to hear from you who you call cannibal.
Gladly. Yes, just Grin. I call my wife that, because I find that this designation for her from my side.
Ha ha ha, that is really humorous, besides.
Just grin, you monster, and make fun of it until I pull your ears out.
It is really funny how you show your affection, only that is why I am amused. Slowly, I understand better why Sim-Ya-Se has changed so much since she is in contact with you. Her humor, which she had never known before in its present form, seems to come from you. I know from Sim-Ya-Se that she is very comfortable with your jokes.